Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 40 of the Lost One podcast. Joining me today, we have Shoshima 1016.
Yo.
And that's it. That's it.
Yep.
So before we dive in, I just want to make a quick announcement that this will probably be the last episode of the Lost One podcast for a little while. We're going to be going on hiatus due to some unexpected developments that have come up on my end, which will probably make me unavailable for recording, at least recording as frequently. So we'll probably be going and putting some stuff back in the can, and waiting until things kind of mellow out, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Last week we talked a lot about Dragon Ball Z.
Yep.
And we decided we enjoyed that conversation so much we're going in for round 2 of our anime discussion. And today we're going to be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Which we referenced a couple times last week, and we've talked about, in passing multiple times.
Yes, but Shenzo, I believe it's pronounced Yu-Gi-Oh!
I mean, you're not wrong. But that's our plan for today. So we'll be talking more about the anime series, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the card game at all.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's hard not to talk about the card game.
Yeah, way back when, I think actually 30 episodes ago, we talked Magic. And I believe in that conversation, we were like, we need to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! At some point. So here we are. Some point has arrived.
Yes, 30 episodes later.
Which is hard to believe. I'm honestly proud of us for making it to 40.
I know, right?
That's another story. Tanner's also here.
Shit, this is 40.
Yeah. Say hi to everybody, Tanner. No? Okay. He's busy licking my hand right now. But, yeah, so Yu-Gi-Oh! Where should we start? Should we start with 4Kids? I feel like we need to start with 4Kids.
Just get the 4Kids, the one and done, get it out of the way.
Yeah, so Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an anime series that was brought to the United States and dubbed by 4Kids. I believe it was 4Kids Entertainment.
Yeah, I believe so,
They no longer exist as a company. They are defunct.
Oh, man.
Yeah, darn. The world really lost some questionable editing and trying to make anime for kids.
And very crazy localization.
Yeah, and definitely Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows a lot of signs of the 4Kids stuff. Little Karibo, who we've talked about several times, did Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series and kind of lampshades a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And 4Kids is not something that I think a lot of people look back on necessarily with a lot of fondness.
No.
They are responsible, I'll give them this, for bringing over and dubbing a lot of anime series early on when no one else was doing it. So they do have that going for them, but a lot of their choices were controversial, to say the least, and not necessarily what I personally look back on as like top quality work. A lot of good to make fun of, and no disrespect to any of the voice actors who were obviously given a direction and cast.
Yeah.
But a lot of the decisions and the edits, and we'll talk about them a lot, not necessarily the greatest.
Shit was wild, yo.
The most notable one that jumps to mind are Sanji's Lollipop from One Piece, where Sanji smokes a lot in the manga and in the Funimation dub, but they decided to replace that with him always carrying a lollipop in his mouth, which as a kid, even I thought was weird. Like, why is this, adult walking around with the lollipop in his mouth? And the other one is from Yu-Gi-Oh!, which we'll talk about today.
Yes.
And that's, stop, or we'll shoot you with our invisible guns, which is a line straight out of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series.
Yes.
From Little Karibo. But nonetheless, they edited out all the people who were pointing guns and had them point.
Yeah.
So there's a scene like with Kaiba when he gets confronted by Pegasus's goons, and they're just pointing him, and it's like, Mr. Pegasus would like to have a few words with ya. Because of course they couldn't just go with
just bad guy accent? That has to be Brooklyn bad guy accent?
Well, I mean, you have Joey Wheeler.
I know, yes.
Who's very Brooklyn, as anyone from New York will tell you. But, a lot of questionable editing. Of course, anytime, someone's life would be on the line, they'd be sent to the Shadow Realm instead.
Yeah.
Including in a most notable one where their Yugi Kaiba are battling against two rare hunters on a skyscraper on a glass thing with bombs attached to each corner. and if they were to lose, they would just fall to their deaths in real life. But they're like, no, you'll be sent to the Shadow Realm.
Well, after I fall to my imminent demise.
Yeah, but of course, this is the decisions 4Kids made because they were trying to take an anime which was aimed at teenagers in Japan.
Yeah.
And bring it over to and advertise it to kids because for some reason a cartoon has to be for kids.
Well, yeah, no, Western culture was like, oh, it's a cartoon, it's made for kids. Like, there's no way.
Despite the Simpsons and Family Guy and
yeah.
South Park.
No way at all. Other than the cartoons they make specifically for adults.
Yeah, Archer, Futurama, etc., etc., etc. Speaking of Futurama, that came back again.
Yep, and they're in Fortnite.
Yeah, they are, which I'm actually...
Seio's so tempted.
Oh, tell him to give in.
I know, right? I'll just be pissed because I missed out on Leon already. But
well, Leon will probably come back.
Yeah.
Like, that's something Fortnite's pretty good at. But anyway, that's an aside.
So yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, it's fucking buck wild, like, especially too, like, the original manga. Like,
it's so dark.
A, it's dark. B, it didn't start with the card game.
No, it actually started with games, period.
Yeah,
like, I think
was just the king of games.
Yeah, it's like a dice game is like one of them.
Yeah, they did the dice game, not like Dungeon Dice Monsters, which...
Yeah, which they would do later and then never bring up again.
I know, right? Although I did have the game for that. That shit was, like, crazy. Like,
I did too. It was fun, but...
Yeah, it was weird.
It was very weird.
And then... he just, like, played games against, like, other questionable, like, morally questionable people. And then just murdered them after he won the game.
Yeah, then he would kill them.
I'm like, oh.
Just outright murder them.
That's not the Yu-Gi-Oh! I remember as a kid.
Yeah, no, it gets pretty crazy. Yeah, and they brought over, when it came in anime, there's actually two versions of the anime. There's the first release where, like, Kaiba had, like, green hair. And that's where that...
Yeah.
Screw the rules, I have green hair comes from.
Yeah.
Because that's an actual, like, alternate dub that came out, I think, before the 4Kids one. And I think, like, Joey's hair is, like, he's not blonde, he has, like, orange hair. It's very, like, crazy coloring. If you ever, like, go back and look at this, like...
What'd they do, take some mushrooms before they, like, decided to change their
Yeah, I wish I could tell you, but... Yeah, so there's this little lesser-known anime where I think they only got through, I want to say, like, I don't even think they made it to, like, Duelist Kingdom. Like, they didn't get very far. But then, of course, there's the second anime, which is the 4Kids dub that most American viewers know. I don't want to speak for any other dubs out there, but given that, like, Little Karibo, I think, is British and he knew about 4Kids, I would assume that they also made it, like, in England and the UK as well.
Yeah, at least in other English-speaking territories.
Because, like, localization wasn't big for, like, anime in the 90s when Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out. But, the cartoon itself, like, I think it spanned, like, 4 seasons. It in many ways, while it did have filler, like a lot of the filler ended up like having like some pretty serious like character development.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
like... Yeah, usually filler episodes, like, you could tell as a kid it was filler.
Yeah.
But, like, it was still some good content.
Yeah, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Filler is not that bad. In fact, one of my favorite arcs, which was the virtual reality arc.
Oh, yeah.
Introduced some really cool stuff, expanded on some characters that had been mentioned. And, of course, we got to learn more about Kaiba, which was cool. That was all filler. Yeah. So that entire arc was filler, interrupting the duelist, not the Battle City.
Like the finale of the Battle City or something.
Yeah, because it was after the blimp, and then it was to go to like the Final Four. It got like interrupted there or something.
Yeah, it was really weird.
But the weirdest part there was they had to like write out Merrick for a while, like Dark Merrick.
Yeah.
And then he just like shows up and like wrecks things because he doesn't understand technology, which I thought was freaking hilarious.
I know, right?
But yeah, like they did they had a lot of interesting things in the series, and of course we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the card game. I think we talked about it in the Magic the Gathering episode, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Was my first card game.
Yeah, same.
And the only reason I stopped playing it was because I went to a store to play, and the rules were one way, and then I went to a different store, and the rules were completely different. Mm-hmm. And that was at the point where it was like, there's no unified like rule set.
Yeah.
So
there technically was, but I think Yu-Gi-Oh! It was still wild times for... Like, I know Magic had, like, a unified rule set, because Magic had been around for so long.
Yeah, well, and they also had judges, which was important. Like, they had a group of judges that all had to interpret the rules the same way.
Exactly, whereas Konami didn't, like, actually do any of that. They're just like, buy our cards.
And the other thing too is Yu-Gi-Oh has there's a joke from Chill Chaos, who's one of the streamers who he loves Yu-Gi-Oh, but he talks about how Yu-Gi-Oh players can't read, and that's hilarious because like in Yu-Gi-Oh they have so much text on the cards.
No, especially newer cards. Yeah, like it's just wall of text.
It's just wall of text, and like there's some in Magic that are like that, but not nearly as many as in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And also the Yu-Gi-Oh card game has had ridiculous power scaling. Like the original like Yu-Gi and Kaiba decks that came out that we bought as kids.
Yeah.
They would not hold a candle to anything that comes out now.
What's funny too is they even like did change like the quote unquote official like rule set / the like your life points.
Yeah.
Like was wild because if I'm remembering correctly, like your official life points was supposed to be like 4,000, like when the card game first came out.
Yeah, I think it was 4,000, and then they switched it to 8,000 like almost immediately after.
Yeah, just because there was such power creep, like even in the cards. Because and then the show they only did 2,000 just to like help speed things up.
Yeah, and the Duelist Kingdom arc.
Yeah, and that first Duelist Kingdom arc. Even though in the Duelist Kingdom arc, they like would play it like they didn't like attack directly or anything like that.
So there was no attack. You can only attack with one monster in Duelist Kingdom. There was you had no sacrifices, so you could just like play Summon Skull. Like you didn't have to like tribute a monster to him.
Yeah.
There was no ban list, obviously, because like half of the cards in Yugi's deck would have been banned.
Yeah. The other half sucked.
Yeah. And like a lot of cards, like Karibo, for example, didn't have like his effect didn't take place until Duelist Kingdom. Like a lot of effect monsters weren't real, but they still included Man-Eater Bug in one episode. Like notably.
Man-Eater Bug. Yeah, there was some effect monsters, but not a lot. I know Karibo specifically.
Yeah, was just treated as a normal monster initially.
At first, yes, and they redid the card then after.
But so lots of weird things, but yeah, the card game again is what we got. Like it's what got me interested in card games. That's why we ended up doing an entire Magic the Gathering podcast, because Yu-Gi-Oh was my gateway into Magic. Frankly, I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh because of the show, and then when I realized that hey, this game is kind of like
it's actually pretty fun though. Like,
it's really fun, but like when I went to like go play it, I'm like, this game is kind of bullshit. I ended up switching to Magic, which is also pretty bullshit.
Yeah,
but it's a different type of bullshit.
It's a unified bullshit. Magic,
yeah,
you know.
Whereas Yu-Gi-Oh is more of a circumstantial.
Especially,
although I have heard they've gotten a lot better recently. Like I haven't been in the Yu-Gi-Oh scene in a long time. Like we're talking like at this point 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So
like I'm sure it's better now, although I have not kept up with these synchro microtransaction summons.
Yeah. No, Chilled. I only know as much about like modern day Yu-Gi-Oh is because Chilled and has a couple friends that are like big into Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I think Tom Fox is one, and I think I can't remember who else plays, but like Chilled has like a couple groups. But Chilled like will go on like monologues to annoy some of his friends who aren't Yu-Gi-Oh players about like some of the rules and cards and new sets. So that's kind of where I know like a bit more about the card game nowadays.
Yeah.
But so thanks, Chilled. I don't think you'll ever watch this, but on the off chance you do, thank you.
It's all your fault, Chilled. I mean, thank you.
But no, but it's fun. And again, like I don't. This is not like knocking on the card game. It's just I love Yu-Gi-Oh, but man, like I just do not want to go in and like reinvest trying to like build up a deck and like learn all the new rules.
Card games are way too expensive right now to start with anyways.
Yeah. I mean, like we even talked about it at the Magic Pod. Like even Magic has had like a lot of trouble recently because they're just oversaturating their product.
Oh, Magic especially so. I mean, I was listening to my one podcast and it's like stores are only buying like every 3 sets or so, like some small town stores, because they can't get rid of the product because they just keep pumping it out like it's still the card game pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody was just buying it.
Yeah. But that's another story. We'll have to talk more about Wizards of the Coast another time, I'm sure. But back to Yu-Gi-Oh! And back to the anime series. Again, like, I will regularly crap on 4Kids. But I want to acknowledge, without them, I might not have become an anime fan.
No, for real. Like, that's the one thing we have to at least give them the credit for is, you know, the gateway of anime, like, introductions.
Yeah, at least here in the States.
You know.
And
yeah,
I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh was, I think, the first anime I remember watching. It might have been
even before Pokemon.
Yeah, I wasn't big into the Pokemon anime originally.
Okay.
Yu-Gi-Oh was my jam. Like, I specifically have a memory of watching my parents had this small like antenna TV in their room, and it had color, which was pretty cool because like even then like colored TVs weren't necessarily like super popular, at least not the small portable ones.
Yeah.
Like we're talking like really early 90s here, and it only had like I think maybe like 10 channels on them, but one of them was Kids WB, where Yu-Gi-Oh was airing, and I would never miss an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I think the problem with Pokemon, because Pokemon was also airing on Kids WB at the time, but I think Pokemon was on before elementary school got out. Because my elementary school time, I think, was 3:30 at first, and it switched to 3:15. I think Pokemon came on at 3.
Oh, okay.
So by the time I got home, even though I only lived like 5 minutes away from my elementary school at that time,
it was pretty much over.
It was basically over, so I would only catch like the end of it. That's why I wasn't into Pokemon as much. But I specifically remember watching Yu-Gi-Oh! And especially after my mom and dad bought me the Yu-Gi and Kaiba starter decks, I would sit and I would just basically play Yu-Gi-Oh! Solitaire against myself while the anime was on in my parents' room. So pretty fun, like pretty fun memory. How about you? Do you remember kind of being in when you were introduced to Yu-Gi-Oh?
I don't know about introduced. I mean, I remember coming home from school, being told, do your homework, don't watch TV, so then I turned on Yu-Gi-Oh! I did pull my homework out, but yes.
Watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Instead of doing homework. As God intended.
As God intended. When I was first introduced, gosh, it's been so long. Like,
yeah. That's all right if you don't remember.
Yeah, but. Like I remember like all of Duelist Kingdom and like all of that. I just can't remember like the first introduction, because I know us, our one mutual friend, and then my little brother like all got into it.
Yeah.
And we played it like all the time.
Yeah, we did.
I'll never forget that one wonky ass game. Was it Duel the Roses? No, what was that weird? It's not even a Yu-Gi-Oh game. It was like a real-time strategy game, like using the Yu-Gi-Oh monsters. It was on the GameCube.
Oh yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I don't remember what the name of it is, but yes, I specifically remember it was an RTS where the monsters were like you would form a party like out of the Yu-Gi-Oh monsters.
Yeah, you had like a party of 3.
Yeah.
And then you had a leading monster.
Yeah. And that was the one that primarily got attacked, and the other two were like more support.
But then your primary monster would be the walking one, because different monsters had different walking speed.
Yeah.
Like I remember that specifically because there's this one part we couldn't figure out, but we switched it to like a faster monster.
And you were able to get through it. Yeah. I remember exactly I know exactly what game you're talking about. I do not remember what it's called.
And I have no idea why the fuck they decided to make that game.
I'm not mad about it. I thought that game was fun.
No, it was fun, but it was like still the GameCube era, so I don't feel Yu-Gi-Oh had like a whole bunch of console presence. Like they did like GBA games.
No, it actually had a pretty surprising presence on the PlayStation.
Really?
Yeah, there was a couple games that came out on the PlayStation for Yu-Gi-Oh. So it did have a console presence, but it just like I didn't own a PlayStation, so I never got to play them.
Yeah,
but our mutual friend though had it. I specifically remember him having like 2 or 3 of the games. But yeah, I would agree with you though that like as far as Yu-Gi-Oh gaming, like video games, the GBA was where they took off. Like all the games I remember were on like the GBA.
It makes sense too, because then like you could have your own game, your own deck, and then play against somebody else.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because I remember a lot of that. I remember playing through a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh GX one where you're like in the school.
Oh yeah, that game was pretty cool.
Like I remember just. It was really funny too because I did like you have your exams you do every so often.
Yeah.
And then like so I remember it was like, oh, try to see how many magic cards you can use like and then still beat me.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, fuck this. I switched my whole deck up, just put a whole bunch of like magic, and spell cards.
Yeah.
And then won, and then it's like, oh, okay, so you go from Slifer, yeah, you're Obelisk now.
Yeah.
It just shot me all the way up because I just destroyed that test, and I had another friend that played Yu-Gi-Oh! And he's like, hey, how'd you do that? Like, I've been Slifer for like 3 tests already. Well, nah, man, I just changed my deck. I'm like, this is how Shenzo must have felt in Chain of Memories.
I was going to bring up Chain of Memories. I'm really glad you said that, because that was my thing too, is I just was like, oh, this is how you win the game? Cool. So
yeah, because even like Fusion, okay, I'll just put a bunch of Fusion monsters. Like, I don't normally use Fusion.
I remember one of my exams in that game was... beat me with, see how many life points you have at the end of the duel or something.
Oh, yeah, like that. So, all right, I'll just stack this. I think I maxed out my life points at one point.
I literally didn't even need to, like, make a change, and I was promoted Obelisk Blue. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, because, like, the deck I was running was just, like, oh, it's basically, like, ultimate defense or ultimate attack. It's, like, I either have, like, really high defense monsters or really high attack monsters, and that's it. So the strategy would be... play the low, like, high defense monsters, so anything that's 2,000 defense or better that you could just play, that were 3 stars or less.
I think it was 4, but yes.
Yeah, 4 stars or less.
Yes.
And then I would summon Skull or like whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, they just can't win because they can't ever break through my defense, and and then I just get the highest attack points, so they never touched me in any decks, but. Yeah, so as you can see, there's been a lot of like variety in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! To this day is like still, I would argue, a pretty big like cultural phenomenon. How many sequels has it spawned at this point?
A bunch. One quick thing on the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. How come on the color system they put the weakest God card as like the best?
Because Kaiba was the founder of the Duel Academy, and he favored Obelisk the Tormentor.
Yeah, because it's like. Clearly, Winged Dragon Ra was like the best of the God cards.
Oh no, it wasn't. It's not even close.
Yeah, but it's like, nah, he's mid tier.
Yeah, but again, it is kind of like you could make the argument that Slifer's the weakest too, because it depends on your card size.
No, that's why I'm saying like it was like Slifer / Obelisk, depending. Like Slifer was just more situational.
Yeah.
But Ra was clearly the best. Like there was no argument.
Well, again, Kaiba in canon, Kaiba founded the Duel Academy. So
screw the rules. I have green hair.
Well, again, it's like he used Obelisk and he used it extremely efficiently. Yeah. So I absolutely see. Plus,
Kaiba legitimately thinks Obelisk is the best because he's the best.
Let's be real. Kaiba has a thing for blue. Blue Eyes White Dragon, Obelisk the Tormentor.
I know, right?
Let's be real. He likes blue. Like, let's just admit.
And Yugi likes winning. Heart of the cards.
Exactly. Heart of the cards, otherwise known as cheating bullshit. But
yeah, no, there's a whole bunch of spin-offs because we had the OG Yu-Gi-Oh! I believe the first spin-off was the GX.
Yeah, it was GX, Generation Next, 5Ds.
And
then I think
Zexal?
Zexal, yeah, and then of course there were a couple movies in there too.
And there was one more after Zexal, but I don't remember the name.
But I mean, again, like there's been a lot of series. That series has been going on for a long time. And even had a movie that I think was released in theaters. I think that was The Pyramid of Light.
I think so. I remember seeing it in theaters and getting the
getting the
blue. Was it the Blue Eyes card you get for it?
Yeah, I can't remember. They had some promotional cards, but
yeah, because it's like Blue Eyes, like Ultra White or Light Dragon,
something like that.
Yeah.
But either way, like it's been. I think we've established at this point that Yu-Gi-Oh! Played a very big role in culture and in anime to this day. It's still referenced by a lot of people. The card game is obviously still around, so that helps. And honestly, as far as like anime card games, I think it's the one that's lasted the longest.
Yeah, if we're gonna go anime card games, then for sure.
Because like One Piece has a brand new one, but we don't know how long that'll stick around.
I know
Naruto had one.
Oh yeah, I remember getting real into that one too.
Yeah, Naruto had one. I think Bleach even had one. Yu Yu Hakusho.
Well, Dragon Ball had one way back in the day, and they have a new one now.
Yeah, Dragon Ball, and like all those are like kind of come and gone. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Has. Excuse me.
Yeah, I don't know why, but you said anime card games. So the first one that came to my mind was that Duel Masters.
Oh, I remember Duel Masters. Yeah.
Actually, honestly though, for that the games were pretty fire.
That I think I would argue was the best balanced one.
Yeah.
For Duel Masters, but again, that's like an aside, and I don't want to go off on that too much, but. Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has outlasted all of them, though.
Easily. I mean,
it's still going. It's still popular. I mean, obviously, Chilled Chaos is probably single-handedly funding them with the way he spends his money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. He literally jokes about, like, all his support goes to Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. So that's why I feel okay saying that, because he says it all the time. But Yeah, but it's one of those things where we, it's clear that unlike a lot of other series out there that, kind of have their flash in the pan moment and then they're gone, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, I think, one of the few that's not the big three or Dragon Ball, right? Like the grandfather or the father of the big three.
Oh, yeah, as far as like an anime. Or Pokemon, which is a multimedia conglomerate.
Conglomerate.
Yep,
yeah.
that's what I said the whole time.
But like again, that's like the exception rather than the rule, right? And
yeah.
The two big ones, I would argue, like the three big ones that are not like the big three, right? Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, and One Piece. It's kind of hard to count because it's still going.
I know.
Like whereas like Naruto's on its second, iteration. Bleach is making a comeback.
Well, I heard Boruto went full shonen. Like they fulfilled their shonen time skip quota.
Oh yeah,
that's what I've heard.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. We can talk more about Boruto another time. But
yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, like it spawned, I don't know how many sequels. The card game's still going on, and a lot of people still talk about the original series to this day.
Oh, they reintroduced is it the 30th anniversary set or whatever? But they have like a Kaiba briefcase.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
With a Kaiba deck in the briefcase.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
But it's like $400, and I'm like,
yeah, not worth, but. Maybe.
Not worth, but it's tempting. It's
just
maybe. Enough price point. You're like, oh hell no, but then you're like, well,
yeah. Good thing Chilled isn't here. He would probably be whispering, "Do it, do it."
But that, and I think I heard this might be. Because they're reprinting some of the base sets.
Yeah. They're bringing back some of the original like cards, and it's purely like for collection because again they don't stack up. Like none of the original cards
as far as
stack
play
up.
goes. And I want to say that I heard something I don't know if they were doing something with like some pre-made decks that like you can just play for fun. That'll be balanced with each other.
Yeah.
Kind of like how the Pokemon Battle Academy did it, where
they had they had the pairs.
Yeah, to introduce you to like be able to play the game.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty good stepping stone.
As far as for us old farts that don't want to figure out how to put in microtransactions to our card games.
Yeah, pretty much. So as you can see, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Has definitely left an impression. And let's kind of circle back to the anime, which is what we were supposed to talk about.
Oops.
But the anime itself, as we talked about, I think it lasted 4 or 5 seasons, like the original run.
Yeah, because it lasted a lot.
It was Duelist Kingdom, Battle City. They had the one with the dragons.
Yeah, the virtual reality one, right?
Oh, no. The actual dragons.
Yeah, like were they from Atlantis or something?
Yeah, it was
right?
it was like the Seal of Orichalcos.
Yes.
And then I think
that card sucked in the actual card game, by the way.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, I mean, it sucked in the series too.
I thought it did more in the show.
It does do more in the show, but it's still terrible.
Oh, okay.
Like when you look at it, it's not great. So.
Okay.
But
yeah, that dragon one.
Yeah, then they had the one with the dragons and the knights.
And then there was the one where they I don't think they fully went back in time, but they were able to merge with the monsters. And I remember Joey turning evil or something.
Yeah. So they did, and then they had the Egyptian game where they actually made Bakura the final villain. Because. Trying to think of, I don't remember with the one with the dragons if that was with Atlantis or if that was after Atlantis. I can't remember. That's when it starts to kind of go together. But I distinctly remember Duelist Kingdom, Battle City, the Seal of Orichalcos, and of course the final one, which was the virtual table game where they thought they went back in time, but it turns out they were all just players on a big board, and it was Bakura and
Yami
Yugi were both the game masters, which was a nice callback to Bakura's first introduction, where he turned all of the Yugi's friends into monsters.
That was a great episode.
It was.
I put Taya in face down defense position.
Really. But so Duelist Kingdom, as we talked about, really simplified the rules to hopefully speed things up in the series, and 2,000 life points, 1 monster attacks, which a lot of those rules don't make like a ton of sense in hindsight.
No, especially it was never a thing in like the actual card game.
But like even within the series, like ignoring the actual card game, like you just stall out the game by playing monsters in defense until someone decks first.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
like the rules never made sense at that point.
Well, yeah, and then the rules, like if you didn't kill their monsters, they just couldn't play new monsters when they drew them because there was no tributes.
Yeah.
You just play whatever you felt like playing.
Yeah, so like Kaiba could just play Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Yeah, just throw down Blue Eyes for free.
Which he does multiple times in the series, by the way.
And then, and Pegasus with Toon Monsters?
Yeah, and then they made the tunes like way broken in the anime. But that was a plot point, so I'm okay with it.
I was fine with it, but yeah, I'm like, oh, cool, I can use a Toon deck in real life. I'm like, oh no, this shit's whack.
Yeah, the Toon deck in real life isn't that good. Like, it's fine when you combine it with like other life point base cards, but then you're taking away from your Toon strategy. So
yeah,
it's not the greatest. But yeah, then so
Battle City they beef it up to 4,000.
Yeah, but in Duelist Kingdom though, like Pegasus is the main antagonist.
I'm sorry, yeah,
and that's when they're really starting to like introduce the Millennium items.
The Millennium items. Pegasus creating the card game.
Yeah, Pegasus
was
creating
like a
the
cool
card
plot
game
point.
Was a super cool thing, and the fact that he was like a painter, and then it was revealed that like his entire motivation for collecting like all of the Millennium items was to try and bring his dead wife back. So
but then like some shadow like being or whatever like forced him to make the cards or something, right? Like he got like wasn't there hypnotism in there?
Or,
like he was
that's revealed way later.
Oh, my
bad. You're jumping like way ahead.
Oops.
Like yeah.
Spoilers, by the way.
He basically was trying to search for power, and he was granted the Millennium Eye, which created an illusion of his wife, and that's where he got the idea to bring all of them together to unlock the Pharaoh's power, right? And obviously he was being used, but and that was by I think his name is Zork, who's like the who's like the
stupidest name,
who's like the real villain behind like Bakura. It's like the thief Bakura is actually not who was put in the Millennium Puzzle. It's actually like a fragment or not puzzle. Millennium Ring.
Ring, yeah. Which is not a ring on your finger, by the way.
No, it's not. It's like an actual like
a necklace ring, yeah.
But it's something that like that was revealed, and like I think he was like ended up manipulating him like throughout the whole thing, and then it turns out like Shoddy, who like makes one appearance in the Duelist Kingdom arc after his eye is stolen and like never appears again until like the final arc, and it turns out he was like dead the whole time, like he's just been a spirit. And he actually owns 2 of the Millennium items. He had the scale and the key.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, okay. And yeah, it's kind of like a big plot point that gets forgotten about, but like, yeah, Bakura ends up stealing like Pegasus's Millennium Eye, and it's like never brought up again until like way later. Because then they go like into Duelist Kingdom, right? They wrap up Duelist Kingdom and then go to Battle City is the next one with the Egyptian god cards, and they play the main role there. And this is where Ishizu and Merrick are like playing games, and Ishizu's like manipulating Kaiba.
Yes. Also, there was that one dude who had like the Exodia pieces. What was he like? Canon-wise, he like stole Yugi's cards after they were thrown in the ocean or something, or he had his own. I think
he had his own because he had 3 copies of each one. He was a rare hunter.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like that was a plot point. Is like Yugi beats Kaiba by summoning Exodia, and allegedly he's the first person to do it, which is hilarious given that like it was his grandfather's deck. So,
and it's not like that complicated of a tactic.
No, but then they bring in Weevil throws in throws those Exodia cards away, so Yugi has to like win. So they basically take out like Yugi's win condition, like at the start of Duelist Kingdom.
Yeah, that was a interesting like.
Joey goes in like he has a really big like character development where he starts off.
Oh, in all of Duelist Kingdom, I feel like that whole thing. He starts off like what Yugi gives him a star chip, right?
Yeah, they split their starships. So they're supposed to start with 2 because Yugi was invited, Joey was not.
Yeah.
And then Yugi somehow gets around that rule by giving Joey a star chip, even though he wasn't invited. So Joey doesn't get kicked out, which is weird.
And then Joey, like, apparently beats somebody and mugs him for his glove, so he can play his star chips.
Something like I think it was Rex Raptor actually.
Was it Rex?
I think Rex was...
I thought he already had a few star chips by that time, but I could be
No,
wrong.
I think Rex was his first because he also won the Red Eyes.
Yeah, I remember. That. Yeah, he won the Red Eyes. I remember that.
Yeah, I think that's how he ended up, winning was Mai. Well, he beat Mai, I think, with Time Wizard, and then I think he beat Rex Raptor as part of like Mai's revenge.
Yes.
I think that's what happened. Yeah.
But yeah, I know at one point he like mugged somebody for their glove.
Yeah, something. He does that off screen, but yes,
yeah,
he doesn't have a glove, and then he suddenly does. So implication there.
Yeah, like he had more star chips than a glove, so I wonder what happens.
Yeah, and then of course we're also introduced to Tristan Taylor and Taya Gardner in the English dub.
Taya's good at DDR, by the way.
Very good at DDR. She also gives a lot of friendship speeches, which is really funny.
Like she is our power of friendship, like protag.
Which is really funny because in the Japanese dub, they're not based on friendship. It's more about like hope. So it's like way less corny and like way more appropriate for like whatever the situation is. And it's just like, in literally in the English, in the 4Kids dub, Taya's just like, it's friendship.
So wait, is the power of friendship more of the meme is more of an English localization than it is like the
100%, just like it's over 9,000 is.
Wow, yeah. I thought it was totally like, an anime power of friendship.
No,
bullshit.
Taya is far, like, she still gives the speeches, but they're not... They're nowhere near as like just all in on this like power of friendship thing. Like they are more...
Let me draw on our motherfucking hands, and that way you can draw the right card because I drew on your hand.
Because the power of friendship. Yeah, I mean, again, it's if you think about it too hard, your brain hurts. But it's one of those things where it's the downside of 4Kids just simplifying everything, kidifying everything, is they make decisions that don't really make a lot of sense or become memes or whatever because they are just so over the top and corny. And, again, that's a whole nother discussion. But, yeah, Taya is far less friendship focused in the Japanese dub than she is in the English one.
And I heard Joey's a lot less from New York in the Japanese dub, too.
100%, yeah. They gave him the strongest Brooklyn accent.
But I loved Joey as a kid. I'm not even going to lie.
I think everybody did, except Kaiba.
Well, yeah. but I'm just saying, Joey was definitely my favorite character as a kid.
Yeah, and then, like, even Kaiba's, like, characterization is fairly different. Like, he's pretty much the same, but, like, in the English dub, he just, like, refuses to believe in, like, any sort of magic. He's way more open to it in the Japanese dub than he is in the English dub. I think even in the English dub, like, the closest he gets to acknowledging it at all is maybe there is something to this, like, hocus pocus. And then he immediately denies he says it.
But to me, that seems in Kaiba's character, at least from the dub that I was brainwashed with.
I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's one of the things 4Kids does that works.
That actually, like, it wasn't, bad.
But it's something that, again, like, giving Joey this, like, really strong Brooklyn accent, or, like, Taya's friendship speeches, like, there's, or invisible guns. Like, it's just, there's a lot of questionable things. So... Battle City, because we went back, but Battle City, Kaiba is trying to collect all the guard cards. That's like his thing. He's trying to collect them all. He was given Obelisk, and he's trying to hunt them down with these like rare hunters. That's why he introduces the anti-rule, which is pretty crazy for like a kid show to introduce an anti-rule,
I know,
like
right?
especially with the controversy around gambling now, like online. But that's the way it was, and. Of course, it ends up being the fate of the world thing with the Pharaoh, like having to, get the Egyptian god cards, and Merrick, who has the Millennium Rod, and Ishizu, who has the Millennium necklace.
Yeah.
Rather.
Yeah, she has the necklace, which isn't
see the future.
Yeah, which isn't the ring.
Yeah, and hi Tanner, making a brief cameo here for all of our video watchers. But yeah, then it obviously goes down. There's a lot of filler, and we talked about the virtual thing, like with Noah and introducing the Big Five, who were characters that plotted with Pegasus to take over Kaiba Corp.
Which was, I felt like that plot thread was good. Like, it did go on for a bit, like in this filler arc, but.
Yeah, well, it was more about them getting revenge, which it makes sense. And then, of course, it was revealed that Kaiba's stepfather, who he overthrew to become the CEO, was actually the secret main antagonist all along, manipulating his biological son, Noah.
But you know what they did give us? Black Luster Soldier riding an ultimate Blue Eyes White Dragon.
No, that was the virtual game. That was not Battle City in the virtual world. That happened in the virtual game, which was a filler episode in between Battle City and Duelist Kingdom.
Did the 5D dragon again? Because I swear it goes up against the 5-headed dragon, which is the 5... The Big Five.
Yeah, but the Big Fives were the original antagonists in the first Virtual War, not the one with Noah.
Oh.
That was the game that they when Kaiba comes back after Pegasus promised to get rid of him. Pegasus failed.
Oh.
Kaiba goes back. He plans to fire the Big Five right then and there for conspiring with Pegasus to take over the company. And they bribe him by saying, hey, your virtual machine... your virtual game, so Kaiba goes in there. It's like a 2-part episode, but it's like filler.
Oh, okay, my bad. I just remember it going up against like the 5D dragon or whatever.
Yeah, so they do that, but that's in the first part. The virtual, that's where the Big Five don't have bodies, so they're taking the forms of their monsters with the avatars.
My bad, I got it mixed up.
Yeah. So they do that. They go back in. As I said, they have to kind of put Merrick, who has this like big revelation that he has an even eviler side, which that was like a huge plot twist, and it's like, oh, immediately go into filler like after that. So it's like, okay. They do the Battle City Tower, which is built up on the ruins of the old Kaiba, old Kaiba Corp for where they made weapons before they switched to games. And Yugi wins, of course, because he always does.
Yep.
He has an amazing duel. Actually, one of the best duels in the series takes place in the semifinals between him and Kaiba.
Yeah.
And then Joey even kind of gets his moment where he almost beats Yami Merrick. Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, Yugi's clutch win against Kaiba used Dark Paladin, right?
I think so, yeah. And so they do that. And then that's when things start to get a little fuzzy for a while for me because I started to lose interest in the series. But I specifically remember Atlantis was a big one. And the Seal of Orichalcos.
Yeah.
And then I think they did another one with like dragons, which may have been the same series.
I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, yeah, and that's when we got, Gaia the Brave Warrior or whatever?
Yeah.
Where like...
Gaia the Brave Knight, I think, and it's like a different version of him.
Yeah, because there was like the other card where you can't put equipments on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, then he like breaks out of the armor, and then he can like murder you.
No, that's not Gaia. That's a different card you're thinking of.
Oh, yeah, because it was Gaia or Gaia the Fierce Knight.
Yeah, and then they made a different card for him where he's like Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight.
Yeah.
He's an effect monster where it's like,
yes.
Oh, if he's the only card in your hand, you can just summon him.
Yes.
Like and on the field, you can just summon him for free.
But
you're thinking of. God, I know exactly, but he has like the black armor, and then he can be unleashed. Yeah.
Is it Giefried or something?
Yeah, Gearfried the Iron Knight, maybe.
Yeah,
I think he was a Joey card.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so they then I think I could have sworn I think the dragons was separate from Atlantis. I'm pretty sure that the one where because this was where the dragons confused with cards.
Yeah.
And what I remember about that is Kaiba freaking combining it with the Crush card to create the Crush Virus Dragon, which was just broken as shit.
Yeah, no, because the one I'm talking about is Joey combining a Red Eyes and the dragon to make a sword for whatever particular reason
that he gave to Gaia or to
Giefried or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was after the Atlantis one. I think that was its own series.
Oh, okay.
And then I think for the final series, which was the 5th one, they did this where they literally like went back to uncover like the Pharaoh's memories, but it turns out it was just all a game, and they're just replicating all the events that happened originally. So you learn about like all the characters who originally had the Millennium items, the Prince Seto, line, the Pharaoh obviously, and of course there's some shenanigans from Yugi and his friends who find their way into the world.
Yeah.
But lots of little stuff like that. That eventually ends, of course, with the ceremonial duel where it's Yugi versus Yami Yugi, and they have to duel each other. And if the Pharaoh can't, if the Pharaoh doesn't lose, which he's never lost at this point, like not really.
Yeah.
He's had a handful of losses, but some are more canon than others. But he's very rarely lost, and Yugi and the Pharaoh go head to head. The Pharaoh uses all 3 god cards, and Yugi manages to beat all 3 gods and then beat the Pharaoh.
Nice.
And allow his spirit to rest, and that's how they end the series. So that's just kind of a brief summary of the series. Talking more about characters, obviously Joey has a very big character development where he literally starts in the beginning, losing to Taya in the series, and it's because he has no magic or trap cards. He just has monsters, so he's just playing with
all monsters all the time.
A third of a deck, And his development as a duelist, and he uses a lot of like luck-based strats that almost never backfired. Like the dude like rolls 10s like every time. But his development, he literally becomes, I think, like the number 3 duelist, where he's regularly taking like 3rd or 4th place in every tournament he takes part in.
Yeah.
Duelist Kingdom, for example. Battle City, I think he takes 4th. He loses to Kaiba in the 3rd place decider round.
Yeah.
That he goads Kaiba into. Merrick obviously takes 2nd. Then, even in like future stuff, like he is consistently dueling against like really, really skilled people and winning.
Yeah.
Yugi obviously has a lot of development as the relationship with the Pharaoh develops.
Yeah.
There's a big part where, they're trying to sacrifice, like the Pharaoh loses after using the Seer of Valerian Calculus. He kind of gets baited into doing so. And he ends up losing, and then Yugi has to make the heroic save, and the Pharaoh has to, gets a lot of character development there.
Yeah, even like just figuring out the Pharaoh as a character throughout the series
was a pretty long-term development.
Yeah.
Bakura obviously played a pretty big role with his evil antagonist, and despite the fact that they, like, I think Tristan at one point, like, literally throws the Millennium Ring into the forest, it still keeps finding its way back. And they never really explain how that keeps happening until much, much later in the series, where it's revealed that, the Millennium Ring is, like, tied into, like, Zork, as we mentioned, the final, like, antagonist who threatened Egypt, like, 3,000 years ago, wherever it was, and then comes back.
I did, like Bakura's, like, the duality, like, the super, like, innocent Bakura.
Yeah.
And then, like, but even, like, Yami Bakura was just, like, chaotic evil. He wasn't even, like, the main antag. He's just...
Not until the very end.
Yeah, like, and then at the end, it finally, like, came full circle.
Yeah, he's a pain, and we talked about that really famous, episode in Duelist Kingdom where...
Yeah, he traps all his friends' end cards.
Yeah, and then they, Teia's like the Magician of Faith, Cyber Commandos Tristan, Flame Swordsman for Joey, and of course Dark Magician for Yugi.
And then the crazy part is that Flame Swordsman's a fusion monster.
Yeah, but remember we talked about that with Duelist Kingdom. They just made up their own rules.
I remember trying to use Flame Swordsman back in the day. I'm like, wait, I have to do what?
Yeah. What's polymerization?
Yeah.
And... Tristan actually has some like really good like character development over the course of the series. You don't really see him duel a lot, but
he punches a boulder.
Yeah, but it turns out to be a balloon, so it's okay. It's not Chris. But he does have very Chris-like tendencies. How much do you want to bet that's where Capcom got the idea? Like just in hindsight, thinking about that, like. Like, do you know a developer in Capcom's like, yeah, remember that time?
Remember
that when Tristan tried to punch a boulder and it turned out to be a balloon? What if we did that, but for real?
But for real, we're not bitches. We'll make it an actual rock.
But, so Tristan gets some interesting character development. He duels a couple times, but it's very rare when he does.
Yeah. I know in the beginning he does a couple, like with Joey, I think just to show power scaling.
Yeah.
But then even after that, I don't remember a specific duel, or didn't he like lose against those
he lost
the Guardian guys or whatever?
He lost against the Big Five in the virtual reality world, and that was a 3-on-1 duel.
Yeah. No, but there was something. Remember the guys that had the 3 Guardians that could like fuse without using polymerization?
Yeah, I think
there was something like they beat up Tristan or something, or
I think they attacked him, but he didn't actually duel. Like Tristan's duels,
I didn't think so, but
I think out of all the characters in the series, I think Tristan is the one who has, I think, the least number of duels. It's either him or Duke Devlin.
Yeah,
but yeah,
Duke Devlin. Yeah. I forgot that's what his name was.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, Tristan Taylor. They had a thing for alliteration.
I know. Duke Devlin. That's a fucking name, dude.
It really is. They, of course, had the Dungeon Dice Monsters episode, which was pretty cool. And that's where Duke Devlin was actually introduced.
Yes.
And that was, again, in between Duelist Kingdom and Battle City. And that took place.
That in Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge, they did, like, the Justin Timberlake song, like, Bring Sexy Back?
Yeah, every time he was on. Now, if you can just get rid of that annoying theme music. What theme music? Like, he has no idea it's playing. It just is.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
Because he is a ladies' man. Although I do think he does lose out to Serenity, though. I think Tristan wins that one. But, yeah... And then Taya, of course, we've already kind of talked about our friendship speeches, but she actually has some pretty notable duels that she wins. Mm-hmm. Her win-loss record is actually really impressive. Like in the anime, she beat Mai. Admittedly, Mai could have won.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But nonetheless,
was it in Battle City or what?
No, that was in Duelist Kingdom.
It was in Duelist Kingdom.
And that was because Mai, Yugi dueled against the Executioner and won my star chips back and saved her from elimination.
Yes.
So when Yugi lost to Kaiba, Mai tried to return the favor, but Yugi was still torn because the Pharaoh had tried to murder Kaiba in order to win.
Yeah.
And so Yugi was like having this like big crisis of faith.
Yeah.
And Mai being, like the good-hearted but yet emotional or angry, person that she could be sometimes. Vindictive, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
She got mad at Yugi and like tried to challenge her to a duel for the star chips that she was just going to give him as a return.
Yeah.
Because Yugi wasn't responding to her. And I mean, honestly, Yugi was being pretty rude to her, in all fairness. But that's when Taya stepped in and like challenged her to a duel, and Taya actually did pretty well.
Nice.
She went toe to toe with Mai. Again, she would have lost the duel if Mai had like actually been trying to win.
Yeah.
But again, this is kind of more character development for Mai Valentine. Which, again, one hell of a name is that, Mai Valentine.
Yeah, that's another good one. Remember when she put perfume on all her cards so she could smell what card she's going to draw?
Yeah, that's actually what she did against Joey to freak people out. It was a...
That would not work.
No, it wouldn't. But, again, it's the same universe where every problem can be solved by playing a children's card game.
And keep in mind, by the way, they weren't using sleeves. I'm just saying, she ruined those cards.
She did. She absolutely ruined those cards. But yeah, like it is interesting too because like Mai is another one of like the top duelists, and one of the notable only female top duelists in the entire series. And granted, she often gets known as the Worf effect, where like she's said to be a skilled duelist when you look at like her win-loss record, it's actually not that impressive on screen.
On screen, yeah. Unfortunately, I know unfortunately, this was still a product of its time. So she was like the token like main female character because there really wasn't like too many like big female duelists. No,
she's pretty much the main one in the whole series. Again, like I said, Taya's win-loss record is actually fairly impressive, but Taya also suffered from some pretty weird like inconsistencies with like how she was drawn, which is the big one, being a product of its time. Like there are some times where she looks one way and then others where it's like, what happened?
Yeah, but some of that's even just the original animation studio, not just 4Kids.
Oh, for sure. Like 4Kids had to work around it, but yeah, like some of the weird thing is like they edited off like she had I think one of her outfits, it's like her yellow one, like she had a yellow like tank top. That she had like Spirit written on that, and 4Kids edited that out for some reason. So yeah, weird stuff there, but
yeah.
Then, of course, we have, Duke Devlin, who he duels, I think, a handful of times. And he
actually does duel, yeah.
He's actually pretty competent. Like,
I mean, Duke did make his own game because he knows games. So
he's very good. And then, of course, we have Kaiba, who we really haven't spent a whole time on, but he's like the definition of like the frenemy.
Yeah.
He does not consider himself to be a friend of Yugi and the gang.
Yeah.
He views Yugi as his rival, but he spends pretty much the entire series helping them out.
Yeah, but this is like even more so than like a Vegeta or a Sasuke.
Because,
yeah, he's like specifically an antagonist, but like not against the main character as much.
No, he is like the definition of the anti-hero.
Yeah.
But he's not like evil. At first, obviously, he is.
Yeah. But and then he gets mind crushed into oblivion, and then
and then he's fine. Defeat means friendship. Yeah. Defeat equals friendship. So just like Dragon Ball Z.
Yep.
But yeah, Kaiba though he also has like some really interesting character development as well because like he is someone who starts off as this spoiled rich kid, and his background, and he still is kind of like an egomaniac throughout the whole thing, but he does like he's always willing to like come up with plans to like save people. Like he was instrumental in helping rescue Joey and Taya when Merrick brainwashed both of them. And then even then he was a big aid in the virtual reality, both of them.
Yeah.
Then he was a pretty big supporting protagonist in the Atlantis thing as well, and with the Three Dragons, and even with the like the virtual world. He was a big help there with against Bakura. So Kaiba has always been kind of this like, rough around the edges character. He's the jerk with the heart of gold in a lot of ways, because like you look at like everything he does in like Kaiba Land, like it's for families, making the game's more accessible with the virtual discs, like where anyone could play anytime.
Well, yeah, because first it was Kaiba Land, you had to go to like this specific stadium, and then they're like, nah, you can just wear it on your fucking wrist, dude. Like,
yeah. But that's the thing, is like Kaiba's constantly like making improvements and trying to make and sharing his love of games like with everybody, and that's something that isn't really emphasized a lot in the series. But like if you look at him, he's like, wow, he actually like,
he's not like the worst dude ever.
No, he's actually a pretty good dude. He just happens to be a jackass. Like,
I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah, not at all.
Speaking, fun Kaiba fact. Do you know they based the PS5's design off Kaiba?
That doesn't surprise me at all. Doesn't surprise me.
I just remember seeing the memes where it's like the PS5 standing up.
Well, notably his Battle City.
Yeah, exactly. No, his Battle City outfit,
which is a white jacket with a black undershirt
with like the high ass collar.
Yeah, with the high ass collar, and then you look at like the design of the PS5. It's like, dude, it's Kaiba as a console.
Yeah,
and then the fact that it's also super expensive and super powerful. I'm all in. I'm all in on this.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where no matter how you kind of swing it. There's a lot of interesting characters. Pegasus ends up becoming an ally later.
Yep. Total, like, I mean, you start the series where Pegasus traps Yugi's grandfather's soul in a fucking videotape, dude. Like, like you hate Pegasus at first.
Yeah.
And then, later, like, he ends up being, like, a huge ally.
Yeah, a big tragedy. He becomes a tragic villain and then a big ally. To the point that, like, he keeps getting brought back. Even in the sequel series, I think he's either like, directly appears a couple times, or he outright, or he's referenced, because I know, like, 5Ds is like several hundred years in the future. But it's again, like, you look at this supporting cast, like Mai again plays a role in almost every season. It feels like. Rex and Weevil go from like being like the top duelists of the age
to like, just being like the Bulk and Skull.
Yeah, Bulk and Skull, and they have a couple good moments like in Battle City even, but I mean ultimately they end up losing. I did think it was pretty cool how they had like Joey duel Weevil in Battle City, whereas Yugi beat him in Duel's Kingdom.
Yeah.
And then did Yugi duel Rex? I don't think so.
I don't feel like he did, but
yeah.
I don't remember for sure. Someone battled Rex. I remember him being on screen.
Yeah, he was dueling in Battle City. I just don't remember. But yeah, it's always interesting too when you like look at a lot of the supporting cast, like how many of them stuck around for as long as they did.
Yeah.
And
there was some awesome like creature cards they've introduced.
Oh yeah, like lots of cool stuff. For me, the notable episode that jumps out to me is when Yugi and Joey have to do the tag duel against the Brothers Paradox in the labyrinth.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about earlier. Yeah.
That one is super cool.
Yes, that whole, because that was like kind of like
it was like a preview of Dungeon Dice Monsters.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yes.
It was basically like, oh, this is basically Dungeon Dice Monsters, because like you have movement and your stuff has to go in.
And then they fused Summon Skull and Red Eyes Black Dragon for Black Skull Dragon, and that shit was dope.
Yeah, that's still, in my opinion, one of the coolest monster designs like ever.
I do like some others, but that one was fucking lit. That's for sure.
That's definitely near my top. But is there like an episode that jumps out to you?
If I had to pick a single episode, there's a lot. I mean, like Shenzo, like being a thing. Like, I don't know, that dude was just fucking threatening the way they handled it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did like Joey getting Red Eyes, obviously, because Red Eyes was one of my favorites.
Yeah. They've all, and we talked about this before, but like the Red Eyes that's a card they've had a lot of additions to try and make it more viable over the years. Yeah.
No, they've definitely like tried to make that like a usable card because it is a fan favorite.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just the whole Battle City arc is very memorable. I know there was stuff after, but I mean, those first two arcs are just like such top tier.
Yeah, like I would say my honest opinion is I would probably rank Battle City as number 1. I'd probably put Duel's Kingdom at number 2, and then the virtual reality one with Bakura at the end, like the real shadow game, as number 3. Maybe Atlantis, and then the Dragon one. The Dragon one to me was the weirdest one.
Mm-hmm. I'll also never forget in GX there was an episode where like someone steals Yugi's deck. It was like in a museum or something.
Yeah, it was a kid, and then it was on tour. His deck was on tour.
It was on tour.
And then so someone stole it, and he was like an imitator.
Yes.
So he was trying to imitate Yugi, the king of games. And I think they even brought in Dan Green to voice him again, like from the dub. And so he does the voice and everything, and trying to like he plays against like Yugi's deck. So Jaden duels against Yugi like on screen.
Yeah, and then like Yugi comes and gets it after or something, or it's like the spirit of Yugi shows up on screen or something.
No, so what ends up happening is like Yugi makes a brief cameo in the original GX to give Wing Kuribo to Jaden.
Yes.
And then at the end of GX, Yugi makes an actual appearance where he and Jaden duel for real, but it's like Jaden was sent back in time, and it's because over the course of like the 4 seasons of GX, Jaden had went from like someone who enjoyed every game he played, win or lose, to just super freaking jaded. And so Yugi basically taught him to have fun again and play the game. But in this particular case, they return the deck back. Yugi doesn't make an appearance at all. It's just I
thought there was some like
the kid is imitating Yugi because that's what he does. He doesn't come up with his own strategies.
Yeah.
He literally goes around and
just
imitates.
it.
So but he could never win. So he stole Yugi's deck because it was the best deck of all time.
Yeah.
And then he still loses because he's not original because Heart of the Cards or some shit.
Yep.
But that episode,
draw on his hand.
I remember that episode very clearly.
Yeah. So yeah, no, just a whole bunch of different memories, but not any like specific ones.
Yeah, and I mean we've been talking for an hour. We didn't even cover like GX or 5Ds. Like
yeah, I mean I know I watched a good bit of GX.
So did I.
But that was more or less where I dropped off.
Yeah, me too. But again, like it I think the staying power, as we've talked about, has been pretty good. So
yeah, I'll never forget. What was it? Homeboy Chad had the XYZ dragon.
Yeah, yeah, and that's in GX.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Which Kaiba had that in, I think, Battle City was when he started using the XY Dragon cannon.
Yeah, but he had that. Oh, and then they came out with XYZ, and like they had like W, like V and W.
Yeah, it was like
later, so it makes like a whole Megazord.
Yeah, it was UVW. Yeah,
or something like
that. But yeah, so I guess on that note, we've been going for about an hour. So let's go into final thoughts. What are your final thoughts on like Yu-Gi-Oh, the anime, and the card game?
Yeah, no, it was like the gateway into like card games.
Yeah.
I do know, like, yeah, big part of like its staying power having like Yu-Gi-Oh Abridged in high school.
Oh yeah.
Like hit us the right time.
Absolutely.
Because Yu-Gi-Oh like was still clearly a thing.
Yeah.
But we were like about phasing out, so then just like having like that abridged version to like revisit.
Yeah, keep it going from a different perspective.
You know, like hit like for us, I think particularly well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just remembered like having a lot of fun times.
And we played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh as kids.
Yes, I know I have my main deck somewhere. It's buried, but I have it. And yeah, no, I do remember having a lot of favorite monsters. I know one of my favorite cards, which ended up getting banned later, was the Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the Beginning.
Yep. That card was very powerful.
Yeah, and just so my whole deck was based off like light and dark.
Yep,
like creatures.
Because that's how you summoned it. Was you had to remove one light and one dark monster from play.
Yeah, from your graveyard out of play. So you didn't even have to like actually sacrifice anything on the field.
Yeah, that's why he was banned. It's because it's like, oh, you can just like
just toss them out of your graveyard.
Yeah, and of course there's lots of cards that let you like discard or mill cards from your deck. So it's like, yeah, you could summon him in like turn 1 if you were really
you had the right strategy.
Had the right strategy
for
and the
real.
right cards. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, between Joey's like warrior cards and some of the cool dragon cards, those are usually like my like favorites.
Yeah.
As far as monsters.
For me, the impact was definitely the video games. Mm-hmm. Again, the Yu-Gi-Oh anime series was the first one I watched, which I know 4 kids, but what are you gonna do? And
I heard they have a good One Piece dub.
Oh, God. I also played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! But eventually, as I've mentioned before, like, I just kind of phased out of the card game because it got apparent that, like, I wasn't going to be able to play this.
Oh, yeah, the power scaling was still, like, crazy, too, because I remember, like...
Even from the first set to the second set, there was a huge jump.
Oh, yeah, because the first set, it was like, okay, 300 attack points if it's a warrior monster.
Yeah.
And, like, there was a lot of conditions, so you had to build, like, a tribe deck.
Yeah, tribal was big, but it's even worse than that, where, like, I remember a 5-star monster, which for non-Yu-Gi-Oh! Players is, like, a 1-sacrifice monster, had, like, 1,500 attack points. Mm-hmm. And then in the very next set, they released, I think it was Goblin Attack Squad or whatever it was, and that had 2,300 attack points.
As a 4-star.
As a 4-star.
Yeah, because that one...
And then,
but
like,
it attacks and it goes into, like, defense. Like, there was some adverse,
yeah,
but
there were some adverse, but, like, nonetheless. And then eventually they released, like, Luster Dragon, which is a 4-star with 1,900 attack power. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, just at some point, the 4-star, like, level was, like, it would go up to, like, 1,900 with no downsides.
Yeah, that was...
2,000 or plus usually had some kind of effect that went with it.
Yep.
But, yeah, so when you're talking, like, oh, yeah, like, this 1,500 attack point, 1-sacrifice monster... Like, why would I play that when I can just play any 4-star monster from the later sets that's stronger than it guaranteed?
Or even, like, Flame Swordsman was a fusion monster with 1,800, which back in the day wasn't, like, too shabby.
Yeah. I mean, you got to remember, at the time, like, Blue Eyes White Dragon was the strongest card with 3,000 attack points.
And it was a 2-sacrifice.
And it was a 2-sacrifice monster.
Whereas, yeah, but then Flame Swordsman, you had to, like, fuse 2 cards together to even try to get him.
Yeah.
So you need 3 separate cards.
To play one card that only had 1,800 attack points.
Or I could have one Vorse Raider with 100 more attack points.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, well, I don't care for the way the card looks as much. You know, Flame Swordsman was dope in the anime, but... Yeah, fuck him. This guy's better.
But practically. But, yeah, so where I got a lot of, like, my playthrough was actually in like, the GBA games.
Yeah, because
like,
I don't remember us playing, like, a lot.
No, but, honestly. Like, I played, like, the crap out of, like, World Tournament 2004, which was on the Game Boy Advance. I played the same one you were talked about earlier with the
GX.
The GX game, where you were at the Academy. I played a lot of, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Games on the Game Boy Advance.
That Duel Link game that came out recently was pretty good too.
Yeah, the mobile one or whatever.
I think it's on Switch and stuff too. I can't remember. I think it's on both, but
it's a solid game. I've heard good things about it too. But yeah, you know, so again, I think the legacy of Yu-Gi-Oh, frankly speaking, is it introduced a lot of kids to anime, whether they knew it or not. And you know, the card game has obviously, I think, become its legacy because, as we talked about, like, a lot of anime series try to capitalize on their popularity with, like, card games or other media or other
merchandise,
and they never last very long. But the Yu-Gi-Oh game is kind of the exception. Like, I would argue here it's probably the second most played game in the United States after Magic the Gathering, and I think that's pretty impressive given that Magic had a couple-year head start.
Yeah, no, that's definitely saying something.
So,
oh yeah, Magic had like several years if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I mean, it's either that or Pokemon. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon's number 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll question if Pokemon's up at number 2 at this point.
Yeah, it might be.
I remember back in the heyday, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was number 2.
Yeah,
but
it might not be anymore. I honestly don't know enough about either trading card game. But with that, everybody, again, I just want to take a moment to say thank you all very much for listening. We are going to be taking a brief hiatus. I don't know how long it will be. Long story short is that schedules have shifted and I need to handle some personal things. But I do intend to come back at some point. But if we don't, a 40-episode run is pretty crazy.
Nothing too shabby.
And I just want to say thank you all very much for listening. Hopefully things will work out. I may have something in the works next week that might be optimistic.
Okay.
But I do think we are going to take a little bit of time off, and if we can record more episodes, awesome. But we are going to take a hiatus. So from myself, for Shoshima, for Tanner, and for Samurai, I want to say thank you all very much for watching and supporting, and hopefully we will see you again sooner rather than later. Bye, everybody.
Bye. I want to hear your favorite monster in the comments.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
And click the bell so you get notifications.